In the heart of Westminster, where power and ambition intertwine, Keir Starmer stood at the precipice of his political career. Once hailed as the savior of the Labour Party, his journey had taken a tumultuous turn. The year was 2025, and the echoes of his past decisions reverberated through the corridors of power. Starmer had ascended to the role of Prime Minister with promises of unity and progressive change. His victory had been celebrated as a new dawn for Britain after years of conservative rule. However, the optimism that accompanied his rise had begun to fade, replaced by skepticism and disillusionment. The tipping point came with the controversial Universal Credit Bill. Intended to reform the welfare system, it was perceived by many as a betrayal of the working class. Protests erupted across the country, and Starmer found himself at odds with the very people who had once supported him. His approval ratings plummeted, and whispers of "dead man walking" became a common refrain among political pundits. Amidst the growing unrest, a figure emerged from the shadows. Gary Smith, the General Secretary of the GMB Union. Known for his fiery rhetoric and unwavering commitment to workers' rights, Smith had been a vocal critic of Starmer's policies. His condemnation of the Prime Minister was swift and unforgiving. "Keir Starmer is surely a dead man walking," Smith declared in a televised interview. "His days are numbered. There are more damning revelations about Beergate that it probably signed his political death warrant." The reference to Beergate was a stark reminder of Starmer's past missteps. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, he had called for the resignation of then Prime Minister Boris Johnson over allegations of lockdown breaches. However, it was later revealed that Starmer had attended a gathering in Durham, raising questions about his own adherence to the rules. The hypocrisy did not sit well with the public. As the weeks passed, the pressure on Starmer intensified. His attempts to salvage his reputation were met with resistance from all sides. Within his own party, dissent simmered. Senior Labour figures began to distance themselves from the Prime Minister, fearing the political fallout from his declining popularity. In a desperate bid to regain control, Starmer convened a series of meetings with his closest allies. The discussions were tense, filled with recriminations and blame. It became evident that the once unified Labour Party was fracturing under the weight of its leaders' controversies. Outside the confines of Westminster, the public's disillusionment deepened. Polls indicated that over half of the electorate believed Starmer should resign. The media, once supportive, now turned critical, amplifying the narrative of a leader on the brink of collapse. In a final attempt to salvage his premiership, Starmer addressed the nation in a televised speech. Standing before the cameras, he acknowledged the mistakes of his tenure and promised a renewed commitment to the values that had once defined his political journey. "I have not lived up to the expectations set before me," Starmer admitted, "but I am not ready to give up on the vision we share for this country. Together, we can rebuild and restore faith in our democracy." The speech was met with a mixture of skepticism and cautious hope. Some believed in his sincerity, while others viewed it as a last-ditch effort to cling to power. As the days turned into weeks, the political landscape continued to shift. Labour MPs began to openly discuss the possibility of leadership change. The once steadfast support for Starmer eroded, replaced by calls for a new direction. In the end, it was not a single event that led to Starmer's downfall, but a series of missteps and miscalculations. The "dead man walking" label, once a harsh criticism, had become a prophetic description of his political fate. Keir Starmer's tenure as Prime Minister concluded not with a grand resignation speech, but with a quiet acknowledgement that his time had passed.